How many of you guys picked up any hobbies during COVID? 1, 2. All right, can we say pickleball? Let's be real. Nudge the person who's not raising their hand when it was pickleball. Or how many got into sourdough bread? It's already mentioned it. Man, that 4 p.m. serving after the food is hitting right now, y'all. Anybody get into gardening? Where's the pride, y'all? Where's the pride? All right, golf. Okay, actually, yeah, I love that the ladies. Thank you. Luckily, it's like God gave us a gift when we started working with our hands and doing stuff outside. Me and my wife, we bought this 100-year-old home. We started working on this house, and we became DIY aficionados. We started making sourdough bread. We started just doing stuff that was beyond the cerebral and gave us more life. And it's an important conversation because it's been a pretty long day of heady conversations and topics, but we also want to make sure we're talking about what God's doing in spiritual formation and how do we make sure we stay healthy? How do we make sure that we finish well? And there couldn't be more people to do this well than Rebekah Lyons, who is a co-founder of THINQ, who's the host of the Rhythms for Life podcast. And her and Gabe just recently wrote the book, The Fight for Us. And when we were talking about the idea and the concept of working with our hands, I love the joke Gabe said, often what we do as Christians is just work with our fingers, where we're constantly typing, we're pushing, but we don't get out. And so would you guys help me in welcoming Rebekah as she helps us learn how do we work with our hands and how do we stay healthy and finish well? Let's welcome Rebekah.
Thank you, Grant. How many of you grew up with parents that said this? If you don't find something to do, I'll give you something to do. Anyone? Yeah, I grew up with 2 school teachers, and we didn't have a TV in our home until I was like in 8th grade. So imagine what those 70s and 80s looked like for us. I remember my mom, I grew up watching my mama sew. She had bought this repossessed touch and sew Singer sewing machine in 1965 from this store downtown. She grew up in poverty, she got a couple side jobs, and she would be helping with seamstressing even in her high school years to make money for her mom and her younger sister. It was this gorgeous sewing machine that had this wooden cabinet and this wrought iron pedal and then all these attachments that made these fancy seams. And there were 4 kids in my home. I had 3 other siblings. And there was always a pile of things that needed hemmed or mended or buttons or, you know what I'm saying. And so when I was 10, I thought, okay, this whir of this like sewing machine was kind of this backdrop of our home. We couldn't afford a lot of things. In fact, we had something that we made in our Fundamental Baptist Church called culottes. Is anyone familiar with these? It's where a skirt's trying to be shorts and it's not working. Right? And so you couldn't actually buy these in regular stores. You would have to make them on a sewing machine. And so we would always make these things and then exchange them with someone across town. Another homeschool family, right, that would get these things back and forth because, I mean, it was kind of like they were on the black market. You really had to work hard to find these things. And I finally received the green light to make my first shirt, my blouse. It was stripes and these scallops little around the edges and these pink heart buttons. And I was so proud to wear those the first day of my summer camp. And the thing about like scarcity in our home is that it required creativity. Like if you wanted to have something and you couldn't afford to buy something, then you had to learn to make something. And maybe I wasn't cool. A girl told me in 5th grade at a slumber party, you'd be so pretty if you didn't wear such weird clothes. And I was like, thank you, I think. And that was kind of how my elementary age lived, and yet we would still, my mom made sure that we would make gifts for family, like felt ornaments, and we would make these birthday cakes every year from this birthday cake pattern book, and everyone got to pick out their pattern, and with a butter knife and different kinds of pans, we'd make something like a race car or an angel or a butterfly. I have photos of our childhood of making all these things. And the wild thing is my mom went to memory care last week. And my favorite memories with her was working with my hands. There was a bonding and an oxytocin that was coming out of my brain because we were doing these things together. Today, we live in a society where we are in a fast pace and we consume more than we create. We scroll and we heart all the things online that we want to one day make, right? Whether it's a recipe or a clothing item or knitting a blanket or whatever it is. We have the idea of doing it, but the execution of it is a lot harder, right? It's easier to have fast fashion. It's easier to go get takeout. It's easier to pay someone to do something that we were primarily made to do ourselves. And in recent research in psychology, research shown that the hand activity from knitting to woodworking to growing vegetables or chopping them is useful for decreasing stress, relieving anxiety, and modifying depression. Functioning hands foster a flow in the mind that leads to spontaneous, joyful, creative thought. Peak moments occur as one putters and ponders and daydreams. This is true. Gabe and I started gardening in 2020, and for whatever reason, I started humming like a lot. And this is the same girl that 15 years ago rocked in the fetal position of my closet in New York City saying, "Will I always struggle with depression?" So I would hum around the house, and my daughter's like, "Mom, you're humming all the time." I'm like, "I'm just happy." She goes, "No, actually, you can like yell at me, and then you walk off and you're still humming." And I'm like, "I just told you, I'm really happy." Like that used to like shock me, or like I'd get in a frenzy, if she and I would have a little friction, but I'm like, it'll be great, guys. And there is this thing where when we work with our hands and our brain is using all the areas of our brain, the left brain and the right brain and all the spheres of our brain are actively working, it is repairing injured neurons from trauma. It actually combats stress and anxiety. Doctors in the 19th century would prescribe knitting to anxiety-ridden women without knowing the exact neuroscience behind it back then. They didn't know that knitting somehow would relax these patients. In a very real sense, working with our hands relieves the mind. An underactive body creates an overactive brain. Is it any wonder then that we have so much stress and anxiety in our day and age? I wonder if the 19th century doctors who visited today, us in culture, would give us a simple prescription: go make something. Scripture tells us in 1 Thessalonians 4:11 and 12, make it your ambition to lead a quiet life. You should mind your own business and work with your hands, just as we told you, so that your daily life might win the respect of outsiders and you will not be dependent on anyone. Romans 12:1 tells us, therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies, your whole bodies, not just the idea or a metaphor of a body, but a holistic body, aligning as a living sacrifice, pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. How wild that we, as Christ, the people of God, that our true and proper worship would be an embodied faith, not a cerebral faith, where we come to events like this and think. Yes, it is important to think. I'm married to Gabe. I understand the importance of thinking. But thinking doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop by hearing the word and writing it down and pondering. It's Jesus going, no, in the first century, everything was embodied. It was not just cerebral and listening in the temple. It was living and moving and having his being. He would tell the disciples, follow me, and they would go, that's really interesting. I wonder what that metaphor is. No, follow me. Use your actual legs. Let's walk from town to town. Let's lay hands on people. Let's break bread. Let's take the Eucharist as now we do in remembrance of Jesus. Everything about the fullness of who we are requires an embodied gospel. A recent study confirms that engaging in manual tasks physically reconnects us to the whole person, aligning with the theological call to an embodied faith that engages our entire being, our mind, our body, and our spirit. Jesus invites us to transition, church, from a cerebral faith to a whole life faith, an embodied faith. The first century was an active faith. Here's the thing. We can talk about God all the time. We can sing songs, we can worship, we can read the text, we can recite it, we can hide his word. We can literally hear the word and learn from the word, but what does it look like to live it? In a first century way, that looked like fishermen, that looked like farmers, that looked like carpenters. There was a trades program that was just so robust because when Jesus would use metaphor of the vine and the branch and the fishing and stepping out on the water, it was so real to them. Let's beware that we don't compartmentalize the kingdom into a keynote, into looking at something on a screen or watching TikTok preachers. Let's make sure that we are a household, a communal people made by a communal God, living in this household of faith. This is what Jesus invites us to do. He wants our whole selves, and it's going to require risk. It's going to require learning new things. It's going to require this neuroscience that does the healing work. It's breaking bread. It's opening our homes. It's hospitality. It's caring for one another. It's nurturing. It's a holistic faith. And when you belong to that, right, when you are surrounded by that, the world looks in from the back corner and they go, could I be a part of that? This isn't like a seminar, workshop that I can dip in and out of. This is a sense of belonging that God is inviting us to. And it begins with working with our hands. Thank you.